Welcome to a new episode. We stopped in the previous episode when God saved Abdullah, the father of the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, from certain death when his father Abdul Muttalib intended to sacrifice him, and how God destroyed Abraha and his army when they tried to destroy the Kaaba, the sacred house of God, with an army led by elephants. In this episode, we continue our discussion about the biography of the best of creation, Muhammad, peace be upon him. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive all new updates. To follow the sequence of events, refer to the description box below the video. Abdullah, the father of the Prophet, peace be upon him, married Amina bint Wahab at the age of 18. She was at that time one of the most distinguished women in Quraysh in terms of lineage and noblesse and character. After their marriage, she became pregnant with the Messenger of God, peace be upon him. Soon after, his father Abdullah traveled on business, and death overtook him in Medina while returning from the Levant. He was buried there near his maternal relatives, Bani Adi ibn Najjar, 2 months after his mother Amina became pregnant with him. When the pregnancy was complete, Amina gave birth to him, peace be upon him, in the holy city of Mecca on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal, in the year of Elephant, which corresponds to the year 571 AD, the year when the king of Abyssinia attacked Mecca with an army led by elephants. He was born in the house of his uncle Abu Talib. His grandfather Abdul Muttalib named him Muhammad, which coincident with the prophecy in the Torah about a prophet who would come after Jesus, peace be upon him, named by this noble name. The prophecy about him, peace be upon him, was also mentioned by Jesus, peace be upon him, using the name Ahmad. The woman who received him, peace be upon him, was the midwife Shifa, the mother of Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, and his wet nurse was Ayman Baraka the Ethiopian, the father's servant. His mother breastfed him for a few days after birth, though she had little milk, and then Thuwayba, the servant of his uncle Abu Lahab, breastfed him for a few days. Then a group of women from the desert came to Mecca seeking babies to breastfeed for a fee, as was the custom of noble Arabs who used to send their children to desert women to nurse them, so that they would grow up with noble characteristics, chivalry, and strong will. Among these women, Halima bint Abi Dhu'ayb al-Sa'diyah was chosen to breastfeed him, peace be upon him. She took him with her after consulting her husband, Abu Kabsha, who hoped that God would bless him through him. God granted their wish and turned their hardship into ease. Her breast began to produce milk abundantly, whereas before it had been insufficient for her own child. Their camel also started to produce milk, enough to satisfy everyone, whereas before it had not been able to feed. When they reached their home, their sheep began to bring back abundant milk. Even though their land had been barren that year, they continued to experience blessings and prosperity as long as he, peace be upon him, was with them. When he reached 2 years old, Halima weaned him from breastfeeding. He grew in a way that was unlike other children of his age, becoming a strong boy. Well, before reaching his 2nd year, she then brought him back to his mother and grandfather. After discussing it with them, they agreed to keep him with her. After turning him to the desert, to his tribe, God sent Gabriel, peace be upon him, accompanied by 2 angels, to split open his chest and purify it. They found him playing with his foster brother behind the houses, laid him down, opened his chest, and purified it from the influence of Satan. Then they sealed it with the seal of prophethood and left. The foster brother went to Halima to tell her, and she and her husband went out to see him. They found him with a changed complexion from the shock. Halima hugged him, and her husband comforted him until he calmed down. He told him the story as his brother had informed them the incident caused Halima and her husband to feel afraid for him. So she returned him to his mother, sharing what had happened, and left him with her despite her desire to keep him with her. At that time, he was in his 4th year. He stayed with the mother and his grandfather Abdul Muttalib ibn Hashim in Mecca. Then his mother, peace be upon him, traveled with him to Medina to visit his maternal relatives, the Banu al-Najjar. She passed away while returning from Medina to Mecca at a place called al-Abwa, and was buried there. His foster mother, Ayman Baraka the Ethiopian, brought him back to Mecca when she was 6 years old. When she returned him to Mecca, his grandfather Abdul Muttalib took charge of his care and showed him great affection and kindness until Abdul Muttalib passed away when the Prophet, peace be upon him, was 8 years old. Abdul Muttalib had entrusted him to his uncle Abu Talib, who was his father's full brother. When Abu Talib decided to travel to the Levant for a trade, the Prophet, peace be upon him, wanted to accompany him. He was 12 years old at that time. When they reached Busra, the first city of the Levant from the Arabian side, they were met by a Christian monk named Bahira. He asked them about the appearance of a prophet among the Arabs in that era. After carefully examining the Prophet, peace be upon him, and conversing with him, he recognized he was the heir prophet foretold by Moses and Jesus, peace be upon them. Bahira told Abu Talib that this boy would have a great future and advised him to take him back to Mecca to prevent the Jews of Levant from recognizing him and harming him. Abu Talib didn't stay long in this journey. He returned to Mecca after completing his trade. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, was 14 years old, the Fijar War broke out between Quraysh and their allies. It was called the Fijar War because the fighting took place in the sacred months. The Prophet, peace be upon him, witnessed some of its days, and his uncle took him with them. He would defend them by shooting arrows at their enemies when they are attacked. The Prophet, peace be upon him, also witnessed the League of Fudul. At the age of 15, the Quraysh gathered at the house of Abdullah bin Jud'an and made an agreement to stand by anyone oppressed in Mecca, whether from Mecca or other lands, and support them against their oppressors. The Quraysh called it the League of Fudul. In his youth, the Prophet, peace be upon him, worked as a shepherd. When his companions asked him about it, he said, "Yes, I used to shepherd for the people of Mecca for some dirhams." He also said, "Moses was sent as a shepherd, and so was David. And I too was sent while I was shepherding my family's sheep at Jihad." In the next episode, we'll continue with his life in Mecca, his work and trade, his marriage to Khadija, and at the beginning of his mission to all people. May you be in God's protection, and see you next episode. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.